Harlem Nights made crime look funny, power look stylish, and success feel eternal. But off-screen, the price was brutal. Broken bodies, shattered careers, and deaths that came far too soon. Now in 2026, their lives reveal the truth. The night never ended, and you'd never recognize who survived it. Eddie Murphy as Quick. Eddie Murphy was born on April 3, 1961, in Brooklyn, New York, and he was just 28 years old when Harlem Nights premiered in 1989. In the film, Murphy played Quick, a sharp-tongued hustler navigating the violent underworld of 1930s Harlem, while also serving as co-writer and creative force behind the project. At the time, Murphy was untouchable. Coming off Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America, he used Harlem Nights to honor black comedy legends like Richard Pryor and Red Foxx. Critics savaged the film, calling it self-indulgent and unfocused, and for the first time in his career, Murphy faced a public backlash he couldn't joke away. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Murphy's career followed a dramatic arc of reinvention and retreat. Massive box office hits kept him wealthy and visible, yet his cultural dominance slowly faded. Privately, however, his carefully managed image cracked. On May 2, 1997, Murphy was stopped by police in West Hollywood at 4:45 a.m. while driving with Adesone Seyuli, a transgender sex worker. Although Murphy was never charged with any crime and his representative denied any intent to solicit sex, the incident ignited intense media scrutiny and created a public relations storm that lingered for years, reinforcing the gap between his wholesome screen roles and his complicated personal life. By 2026, Eddie Murphy is 65 years old. Still among Hollywood's most influential and successful comedians, he now works selectively across film, voice acting, and producing. Richard Pryor as Sugar Ray. Richard Pryor, born on December 1, 1940 in Peoria, Illinois, was 48 years old when he appeared in Harlem Nights in 1989. In the role of Sugar Ray, Pryor embodied raw authority and street wisdom, bringing a dangerous edge that only a real-life legend with scars to match could project. Long before Harlem Nights, Pryor had already rewritten the language of American comedy. Rising from a brutal childhood marked by violence and instability, he transformed pain into truth on stage, becoming the most influential stand-up comedian of his generation. Years of heavy drug abuse, particularly cocaine, ravaged his body and mind, culminating in the infamous 1980 incident in which he set himself on fire. Even as films like Stir Crazy and See No Evil, Hear No Evil made him a box office force, his health and emotional stability were steadily collapsing. By the late 1980s, Pryor's struggles were no longer hidden. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a degenerative disease that progressively stole his physical strength and speech. At the same time, his personal life unraveled in public view. Pryor married 7 times to 5 different women, cycling through passion, reconciliation, and divorce, reflecting a restless inner life that fame and money could not soothe. Richard Pryor died on December 10, 2005, at the age of 65, from a heart attack following years of complications related to multiple sclerosis. Red Foxx as Uncle Bubba. Red Foxx was born on December 9, 1922, in St. Louis, Missouri, and he was 66 years old when Harlem Nights premiered in 1989. In the role of Uncle Bubba, Foxx brought old-school swagger and razor-sharp timing, channeling decades of lived experience into a character who felt less like fiction and more like history walking onto the screen. By the time he joined Harlem Nights, Foxx was already a television legend. His groundbreaking success on Sanford and Son in the 1970s had made him one of the most recognizable black comedians in America, but fame came with a hidden cost. Despite enormous earnings, Foxx lived lavishly and mismanaged his finances, falling deeply into debt. By the early 1980s, the Internal Revenue Service seized many of his assets, including cars and homes, forcing him into bankruptcy and humiliating him publicly as the man who once defined success suddenly fought to stay afloat. Professionally, Foxx kept working, appearing in films like Harlem Nights and returning to television in a desperate attempt to stabilize his life. Yet the stress of financial collapse, combined with years of exhausting performance and declining health, weighed heavily on him. On October 11, 1991, Red Fox died of a heart attack at 68 while rehearsing The Royal Family, a cruel irony for a comedian famed for fake on-screen collapses. Della Reese as Vera. Della Reese, born on July 6, 1931 in Detroit, Michigan, was 58 years old when she appeared in Harlem Nights in 1989. In the role of Vera, the commanding and elegant madam, Reese projected authority, warmth, and resilience. Long before Harlem Nights, she had already built a rare dual career as a successful jazz singer and television actress, yet her personal life was marked by profound loss. In the 1970s, Reese was diagnosed with lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease that caused debilitating pain, fatigue, and depression. The illness not only threatened her life but also ended her dream of carrying a child. After years of infertility treatments, she and her husband suffered the heartbreak of losing a baby, a loss that plunged Reese into deep emotional despair. As her health fluctuated, Reese leaned increasingly into faith as a source of survival rather than escape. She became an ordained minister and spoke openly about battling depression, financial strain from medical bills, and the fear that her career might vanish as her body weakened. Yet even during these struggles, she continued to work, later finding renewed purpose and stability through television projects that allowed her to balance acting with her physical limitations, including the long-running series Touched by an Angel, where her presence embodied compassion born from lived pain. Della Reese passed away at her home in Encino, Los Angeles, on November 19, 2017, at the age of 86. Michael Lerner as Bugsy Calhoun. Michael Lerner, born on June 22, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York, was 47 years old when he appeared in Harlem Nights in 1989. Cast as the ruthless gangster Bugsy Calhoun, he delivered a sharp, intimidating performance that cemented his reputation as a natural antagonist. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Lerner was repeatedly cast as corrupt officials, mobsters, and morally compromised power brokers. Roles in films like Barton Fink and Godzilla kept him visible, but rarely allowed him to escape the narrow corridor Hollywood assigned him. As younger faces replaced him and studio priorities shifted, leading opportunities thinned, and his once steady career settled into a pattern of supporting appearances rather than reinvention. The quiet nature of his later years mirrored his professional fade, respected by peers, remembered by casting directors, yet largely invisible to the public that once feared his characters. There was no comeback arc, no reinvention, only the slow erosion that comes when an actor becomes known for a single type and little else. Michael Lerner died on April 8, 2023, at the age of 81, from complications related to a seizure at a hospital in Burbank, California. Danny Aiello as Phil Cantone. Born on June 20, 1933, in New York City, Danny Aiello was 56 when he appeared in Harlem Nights, 1989, bringing a grounded, world-weary menace to mob enforcer Phil Cantone that made the character feel strikingly real. A former U.S. Army veteran and one-time nightclub bouncer, he entered Hollywood late, carrying the physical toll of hard labor and street life into his performances. His breakthrough came with Do the Right Thing in 1989, released the same year as Harlem Nights, which earned him an Academy Award nomination and briefly positioned him as one of the most respected character actors of his generation. Yet leading roles never followed. Instead, he returned repeatedly to supporting parts: tough men, authority figures, aging criminals, reliable, powerful, but rarely celebrated. As the years passed, Aiello continued working steadily, appearing in films such as Moonstruck and Leon, The Professional, but his health slowly declined. The industry's pace grew less forgiving, and offers became sporadic. By the late 2000s, illness forced him further from the spotlight, turning his final years into a gradual withdrawal rather than a dramatic exit. Danny Aiello died on December 12, 2019, at the age of 86, in a hospital in New Jersey after a brief illness. Arsenio Hall as Crying Man. Arsenio Hall, born on February 12, 1956 in Cleveland, Ohio, was 33 years old when he made a brief but memorable appearance in Harlem Nights in 1989. Cast as the eccentric Crying Man, Hall used only minutes of screen time to steal attention, signaling a comic presence that felt fresh, unpredictable, and perfectly tuned to the film's rhythm. The Arsenio Hall show transformed Hall into a late-night phenomenon of the early 1990s, redefining talk television with youthful energy, hip-hop culture, and unapologetic black visibility. But the rise was fast, and the fall even faster. As ratings slipped and network politics shifted, the show was abruptly canceled in 1994, leaving Hall suddenly untethered. Offers slowed, the spotlight dimmed, and a performer once everywhere seemed to vanish almost overnight. Years later, controversy dragged him briefly back into public view. On May 5, 2016, Hall filed a $5 million defamation lawsuit against Sinead O'Connor after she accused him of enabling Prince's drug addiction and spiking his drink at a party hosted by Eddie Murphy. The allegations spread rapidly, threatening to rewrite Hall's public image. When O'Connor issued a public apology and formally retracted her statements, Hall withdrew the lawsuit, but the episode reinforced how fragile reputations remain long after fame fades. By 2026, Arsenio Hall is 70, living largely out of the public eye, remembered not for late cameos, but for a talk show empire that burned brightly and faded just as quickly. Lela Rochon as Sunshine. Lela Rochon, born on April 17, 1964, in Los Angeles, California, was 25 years old when she appeared in Harlem Nights in 1989. Cast as Sunshine, the glamorous and seductive woman of the night, Rochon embodied the film's polished allure, her beauty instantly commanding attention even in a role with limited screen time. That beauty soon became both her calling card and her cage. In the early 1990s, Rochon found success in romantic and sensual roles, most notably in Waiting to Exhale, which elevated her into a cultural icon of black femininity. She was repeatedly cast as the beautiful woman, rarely offered complexity or emotional depth. As the industry shifted and younger faces emerged, opportunities narrowed, and the momentum she once carried began to slip quietly away. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Rochon's career slowed to sporadic appearances rather than leading roles. The absence of scandal did not protect her from invisibility. Instead, typecasting and changing standards of beauty left her without a clear path forward. As of 2026, 62-year-old Lela Rochon lives largely out of the public eye, remembered as a symbol of elegance and desire, and of how quickly Hollywood moves on once it no longer knows what to do with beauty. Charlie Murphy as Gusto. Charlie Murphy, born on July 12, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York, was 30 years old when he appeared in Harlem Nights in 1989. Cast as Gusto, a small supporting character, Murphy barely registered at the time, overshadowed not only by the film's legendary cast, but also by the towering fame of his younger brother, Eddie Murphy. While Eddie became a global superstar, Charlie drifted between minor acting jobs and behind-the-scenes work, carrying both loyalty and quiet resentment. His early life was marked by turbulence, time spent in foster care, service in the U.S. Navy, and long stretches of obscurity that hardened his worldview. Acting roles came slowly and rarely, and for much of the 1990s his name meant little to the industry despite his proximity to greatness. Recognition arrived painfully late. In the mid-2000s, Charlie finally found his voice as a comedian and storyteller, achieving cult fame through Chappelle's Show, where his raw, unapologetic stories revealed a sharp wit forged by decades of being overlooked. Just as his career stabilized and respect followed, his health collapsed. Murphy was diagnosed with leukemia, a battle he kept largely private while continuing to work sporadically, even as treatments weakened him and opportunities once again slipped away. Charlie Murphy passed away on April 12, 2017, at 57, after battling leukemia, leaving behind a bittersweet legacy as a truth-telling voice whose long-delayed recognition came just as time ran out. Robin Harris as Benny Wilson. Born on August 30, 1953 in Chicago, Illinois, Robin Harris was 35 years old when he appeared in Harlem Nights, 1989, as Benny Wilson, the loud, unpredictable hustler whose scene-stealing energy delivered some of the film's biggest laughs. At the time, Harris was standing on the edge of something big. He had already built a powerful reputation in stand-up comedy, known for his fearless delivery and brutally honest humor rooted in real-life struggle. Hollywood was only beginning to notice, lining him up for supporting roles and early development deals. Unlike many comedians chasing polish, Harris leaned into raw authenticity, making his comedy feel urgent, lived in, and dangerous, the kind that signals a star just before ignition. That ignition never came. On March 18, 1990, less than a year after Harlem Nights was released, Harris died suddenly at the age of 36 from cardiac arrhythmia at the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago. 37 years after Harlem Nights, the laughter still echoes, but the lives behind it collapsed in silence. Fame faded, careers vanished, and some stars were gone before Hollywood even learned their names. Which journey stayed with you the longest? Share your thoughts below, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the untold stories behind Hollywood's brightest nights and darkest turns.